Okay, so we are beginning a new section on the Age of Reason, otherwise known as the Enlightenment. And what we're going to see is changing attitudes about science, about law, economics, even natural philosophy. Pretty much all of the major changes that make up the modern world are going to have their seeds planted during this age. It's a continuation of the scientific revolution that we saw begun during the Renaissance. We're going to carry new ideas and create new thinking, new thoughts, new ideas that we are going to begin changing the way we look at the very universe itself. So no big deal. I'll get to those later. So by the 1700s, scientists have progressed the scientific revolution to push into new topics and new ideas. And one of the things that's going to really push the envelope is the understanding of natural laws. Now, let's be clear what a natural law is. Natural laws are basic principles about the universe that we can base other observations upon. For instance, gravity. Gravity is a natural law. So if you've ever seen t-shirts that say, obey gravity, it's the law, it's a science joke. That very funny. No, stop. It's not funny. I told you it's not funny. Stop it! Stop it! How dare you?
Sorry.
That's all right. But it allows us to make informed observations about the world. So, for instance, the idea of mass attracting mass, gravity, well, does that apply to light? Is light affected by gravity? It is. Great example of that, black holes. First of all, consider this. The things that we see, what is that really? What do we see? Like the stuff that I'm seeing, what is it really? How do I see stuff?
Reflection of light.
Light bouncing off stuff, sure. And the hues and colors are determined by how much light energy is absorbed by that particular surface. So let's go on further with this. A black hole is an area, is a singularity of such intense gravity that light doesn't escape it to bounce off to our eyes. So if you look at it, it's just nothingness. It's black. Now, you can look at it through other means and see it, but not using light. So gravity influences light even. So this changes our understanding of the universe, yes? So this is the things we're talking about. The laws informing scientific observation, understanding how the universe works. What's really screwy is when you sit get into things like quantum theory and things like that, theoretical physics. Because then it's like, the rules apply, but only sometimes. Or effectively, I'm going to have some scientists listen to this on YouTube go, what? That's crap! It's wrong! And I'm not a scientist. I'm just making stuff up. It's fine. Relax. Have a Mars bar. It'll be all right. So, what we are going to... all right. What we are going to have the Milky Way. Just keep that celestial bodies. I love Milky Way. Anyways, that doesn't fit into our solar thing. With the program. Come on. Anyways, but one of the great contributions of the time, kind of on the same lines, is by Edward Jenner. He is a guy who creates a vaccine for the #1 killer of the time. Guys, the magnitude with which this is received would be as if a scientist cured all forms of cancer. You know? And in fact, if you look at some of the scientific, medical science envelopes that are being pushed, we are living in a very interesting time, to put it that way. Things that would completely destroy civilization's core are a minor nuisance to us. And we are woefully ignorant even today. I mean, thinking about where medicine will be in 100 years is truly mind-blowing. Stuff they're working on is completely crazy. They have looked into the possibilities of using stem cells in a 3D printer to be able to print skin, like to print internal organs. So you put in some cells that are harvested from your body and print yourself a new heart if you need another one. So there's 0% rejection. Someone who needs a new heart can just print as many as they need. They are looking into the possibility of creating cybernetic internal organs. There's one actually that's in testing, or will be in testing in the next couple of years. That's a replaceable kidney. Basically, you have it implanted into your body, and it's got a filter similar to like a furnace filter, and it filters your blood. So for a disease like FSGS, where you have an autoimmune disease where it's attacking your own internal organs, let the disease go. It can't hurt bionics, so just let it go. It would completely get rid of diseases. That's the kind of level of change we have going on. With all the advances we have in the 18th century, the population of Europe goes from 4 million to 12 million. This would be like our population booming to 6 or 7 trillion. Think about that. Think of how crowded the world is now, and quadruple that. So we're talking about some pretty amazing changes going on. Not to mention some new attitudes about things like cleanliness. Queen Elizabeth I of England, you may have read, thought herself to be a paragon of cleanliness. She said that she bathed once a month, even if she didn't need it. Now, we are once or twice daily society. Otherwise, we look kind of strangely at you. And the fact is, the fact was that they had a different attitude. Consider everything we know. For instance, germ theory. We know that diseases are caused by little microscopic organisms. They had no idea of that back then. All they knew is when you bathe, you're putting yourself at extreme risk. Because consider this, not everyone has really nice bathtubs. They get nice warm water. There's no indoor plumbing. So a lot of bathing is done out in the creek or in a river. Try to think about that doing it in winter. What happens if you're cold and wet? You die!
Oh.
So, we can see why. They would look at it as, you don't want to do that because it's a risk, Not, oh my gosh, if I don't do this, I'm going to get, infections and be sick all the time. Yeah?
Someone else told me, when they have, the big hair, that was, in style where the hair was really, tall?
Yes.
Okay, it said, when they didn't bathe, they used to take, sticks and stick it in their hair to try and get, all the stuff that gets caught in it out. Is that true?
That's new to me. I will say that there are hairstyles that revolve around not washing your hair, but, what? Yeah, sure. So, there's a lot of advances that go on towards these understandings of science based on these ideas of natural laws. And that's going to be one of the things that leads up to this period of the Enlightenment is more and more understanding. We're going to look at some of these changes, both in terms of chemistry and also natural science. One of the things we're going to have is people become more and more interested in the natural world. We collectively call naturalists. Folks who go and study animals and plants and all sorts of other things to understand more about the world we live in. And they're going to make some pretty interesting discoveries along the way. And this is, by the way, something that's still being pushed today. We don't know everything. Every single day, we understand a little bit more about the world we live in. And it's fascinating to think that we've been at this for centuries and still don't have everything. Some might say that's a bit depressing, but consider this. The speed at which our understanding grows. Consider, if you will, propulsion. How we get from place to place. For much of history, what's the number one way of getting around? Nope. Walking. Yeah. Horses were a luxury. You can do that. That was, hoity-toity. Then we move on with carriages to cars. Which, by the way, do you guys know when the first car was invented? Yes, you're on the right century. 1873, I believe, was Carl Benz's car, as in Mercedes-Benz. But that was really more of an experiment. If you really look at it, it looks a bit like a boat with wheels. Actually, not even really like that. It looks like a park bench with wheels. It's really not what we would consider a car. The first mass-produced car that people start owning en masse is the Ford Model T, which is not going to come around until the early part of the 20th century. I'd say like 1913, 1950, something like that. I'm sure I'm off by a few years there. Someone can send me hate mail later. But that's around that time. And consider the Apollo missions, the missions to space, between 1913, where we're starting to really have cars being plausible. 50 years later, we got a guy on the moon. Think about that. Think about how much cars have changed from that little park bench to now. Technology has been increasing in speed and development as time goes on. Consider what cell phones looked like 10 years ago. Think about what they're going to look like 10 years from now. And how we're going to be like, oh my God, how do we live with those smartphones? They're so slow and stupid. True story.
They're probably going to be like this big by the time.
I doubt they'll be bigger. They're probably about the same size, because that's practical. I could be wrong, but generally things get smaller. That being said, like right now the theory is that in truth we won't even have phones, they'll just be built into you.
Right. Ear.
Yeah.
Or like a little chip or something you want to call.
Yep.
That's
Yeah, the actual true thing is it won't even be on cellular networks because that's too slow. You'll be on through the internet, on Wi-Fi hotspots. That's how my phone works.
What is it?
It's a Republic wireless phone. It actually, I have cell connection, but most of the time, you see I've got a little green chevron on it. That's telling me I'm on President Network. That's how I accept calls and text messages. Think like Skype, but it's portable. So the theory is that that's what will happen. It'll just be in your head. So it's like you want to talk to someone, you just think, I want to talk to this person, you're connected.
What if you keep bad about that? And then like go to a call them?
That would be an interesting problem, but that's not a problem with technology, it's a problem with user interface. We don't know, this is a theory. This is all theoretical stuff.
This is creepy.
And that's the thing and this is what I find really interesting. Look at how older folks look at technology with some bit of distrust. I don't like that. What are you doing right now? Exactly. Because we're comfortable with what we grow up with, and stuff that gets pushing new and newer. A lot of people are upset and kind of disturbed by it. Unless you're a big sci-fi nerd, I think, because then you're just kind of like, neat, I want Star Trek to be real. Those kind of people are a little different. Which is actually really weird. If you go back and look at Star Trek, like in the 80s and 90s, stuff like that, it's all the technology we have. Like in 1987, in Star Trek Next Generation, they're walking around with little tablets reading and doing that. Like, seriously, they had tablets, things like that. It's funny because they actually made the new Star Treks that came out. The technology, doesn't impress us. It's like, we already have that.
Did you see the watch that's thing where they have all the...
Heard about that. So who knows where we're going to be? But that's the interesting thing about technology, guys. It's constantly changing. What's that? No, because it's actually not practical. Yeah, it's one of those things that people dreamed of whenever flight was becoming a new thing. Then you realize, think about this. The disaster that was caused by 9/11. Now imagine every yahoo can now fly and do that same thing.
Oh, that's not
That's
a good idea.
a terrible idea.
That's not a good idea at all.
You want to see, though, that's an interesting practicality? If you look at iRobot, the cars they had in those, that actually is practical. Because you just set it and forget it. But you can also take control if you need to. Because people are actually stupid and slow. Machines are fast. So if you have a machine that can actually go and produce things, like people are like, what if, the machine has a thing? Machines don't really make mistakes like that. So you could actually be in a car controlled by a machine that will make decisions faster. So you're passing within inches of each other. It'd be really, really unnerving for someone who's used to driving. They just become, just read your newspaper or whatever. All right, so we'll continue this whole section tomorrow. If you guys want to go ahead and get a little bit ahead, there's the next section of notes that we'll start with tomorrow morning. It's on YouTube now, so you can look at them at your own speed. We're going to stop this recording.